Tensions are growing in Ethiopia as anti-government protests continue for a fifth consecutive day in the country's Amhara region. The protests were triggered after the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's office announced plans on Thursday to disband the Amhara Special Forces. At least a dozen cities and towns in the region saw protests over the weekend, denouncing the move and the federal government's order to integrate the ASF into the police or national army. There have also been reports of clashes between the army and the ASF near the town of Kobo, which is close to the border with the northern region of Tigray. Well, joining me now is Ezekiel Gebisa, who is Professor of History and African Studies at Kettering University in Michigan in the United States. Thank you for joining us here on Focus on Africa, Professor. I wonder if you could just explain to us, please, the role of the ASF.
I think it was supposed to be something between the regular police, and the military, where if there are insurgents in the region that whose activities is beyond the capacity of the police, that they would use military tactics to put down rebellion. So that was the idea. The ASF, not only in the Amhara regional state, but all regional states in Ethiopia, have something that is between the federal military and the police force. And it's a very gray area. It has no constitutional basis, but that's the idea of it.
In terms of clashes and those coming up against the federal government forces, do we know how many groups and how often these clashes are taking place?
The clashes are taking place all over the region right now, not only in the Kobo area. What is reported in the Kobo area is clashes between the federal forces that are trapped in the city and the Amhara forces, various Amhara forces, including the Amhara regional state special forces, but also some other armed groups that are supported by political parties from that region. So in some places, the conflict is between the regional forces and the federal forces. In some other regions, there are armed militias who are trying to do some political work in some other areas, road blocking, and other vigilantes that are actually taking advantage of the situation to score points or carry out their own agendas.
So in terms of agendas, what exactly are the demonstrators calling for, and how likely is it that the government will relent?
The agenda is that the reorganization of these special forces, not just the Amhara regional special forces, but the special forces of all regional governments, must be reorganized and integrated either to the national police or the federal police or the regional police forces or the ENDF, which is the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. That was the agenda. The primary opposition of the protesters is that the Amhara region cannot at this point disarm. The special forces should not be disarmed, not at this point at least, if any disarmament is going to occur or reorganization is to occur, because what they're saying is that the Tigray forces have not disarmed according to the Pretoria Agreement, and in the Oromia region, there is no plan to disarm them and integrate them. That will make the Amhara regional state vulnerable to attacks, so they shouldn't be disarmed at this point in time. But the protesters are also saying that we cannot disarm, or the region cannot disarm, before the Ethiopian constitution has been changed, and Article 39 of the Ethiopian constitution, which guarantees the right of nations to self-determination up to and including secession, is actually cancelled. So what they're asking for right now is basically not only the opposition to the reorganization, but also changing the country's constitution.
Okay. Professor Ezekiel Gebisa, I know you're watching things very closely, and I'm sure we'll talk to you in the course of time. Thank you.